this is part 2 of the underpainting demo. So my palette, my paper towels, my water, my paintbrush are off camera. So what I'm going to do now is use vine charcoal, which is an organic material that I like more than pencil because pencil is graphite and it's a metal that eventually will come through the paint. This smoked willow or linden branch for vine charcoal is going to become part of the paint, and it's easy to erase or smudge. So when you're drawing your object, just make sure that you have room for your cast shadow too. So pears are these organic things. If you were to go to the supermarket and pick up a bunch of pears, they would all be different. So it doesn't really matter. No one's going to know if you drew the pear properly or not. Right now my pear's a little skinny on the top. There's where the stem is. I'm paying attention to where the cast shadow is. If I want to make a change, I just smudge it out. So I'm noticing that my cast shadow starts about here, comes over, curves around, and then about a third of the way up I can see it. It's got a couple things going on. It's curved because my subject is curved. Push this up a little so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. So now I usually just start painting. The first thing I do is look for my areas of shadow. So the way this is lit in this video, this area of light is super bright. This whole half is my area of light. And really my highlight is not going to be massive like this white shape. But I do see this big shape right here, and I'm going to paint that big shape in first. Then the other half of the pear is my area of shadow. Within the area of shadow, so it's like a medium dark, within this area, there's this core shape. That's the darkest part of the whole form. There's also a line of reflected light that's being bounced back from a mirror I stuck over to the side. So I have, within the form, area of light with a highlight, area of shadow, within which is the core, and I have reflected light. Finally, I have the cast shadow. And if we're following the theoretical sphere formula, the only place you'll really have a true black will be where the pear touches the table within its cast shadow. So I'm going to assign that black when I paint today, even if I modify it when I work on the painting next class. So the function of the underpainting is to map placement of the values you need to model form, and you want to keep the paint thin and watery so that if you want to make changes later, you can, and you won't have like bumps from dried acrylic paint. So some people do find it helpful to come and outline some of the shapes they see within the pear. Like the little edge gets darker. There's a core shape here, but I don't usually do that. I'm just going to go for it. All right, so I'm going to start with the biggest shape I see. Actually, the second biggest. I'm going to start with my area of light. So I'm going to water my paint down. I'm making it nice and watery so that it will flow. It'll be thin. And I'm going to just go in and paint the shape I see. So. Nice thin paint. I actually see a little light over there, so I'm going to stick it in there. Now I'm putting my brush in my water and swishing to clean my brush. And I'm going to go for a dark that I can use for the overall area of shadow. So off camera, I thinned my paint, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that big shape. It's so funny. It looks so different through the camera than it looks like the actual pear looks. Okay. If I have any thick bits of paint, like a thick ridge on the side here, I'm going to take the brush and straddle. So half of the brush is on the paper, half is on the wet paint. I cleaned it and it's damp, and I'm just going to pull along. It's going to smooth my edge a little for me. Okay, so within that shape, I need a super dark. And that's my core. Get skinnier up here. So where the pear is narrow, the core is a little narrow, and then where the pear starts to get wide, the core gets wider and gets skinny at the bottom. I also see it goes dark, and then it's lighter, and then it gets a little darker, so I'm going to wet my paintbrush to thin the paint. And I still have that dark color, but it's a little thinner, and I'm going to come put the darker edge where I see it. And I know it's subtle. Top of the pear is dark. Okay, so now I need my reflected light. So I'm going to clean my brush again. I'm swishing it in water and wiping it with a wet paper towel. So I need a color that's lighter than the existing ones here, but probably slightly darker than that. Right. And again, it's a rough draft, so if I decide later that things aren't showing up the way I want them to, I'll make changes. Light. A little light right here. So that's my reflected light. And I still don't have a highlight over here. And I'm going to put my stem in. My stem's going to look really fat because I have this big fat brush. But when I do the negative space next time, I'll use the background space to thin my stem. I'm just going to sort of indicate where it's going to be. I'm not going to worry that it's way too wide. Swish my brush. Get a little white for the highlight. So I've got pure white on my brush now. And the highlight in the pear looks really big, but in real life it's not. But I am going to put that sort of rectangular shape I see right here, a diamond shape, in with white. And because it's already on paint that's kind of gray, it's not staying white, it's kind of getting lighter. And it's skinnier at the top here. Right. I'm taking just water, and I'm going to blend this a little bit. Blend that out. Happier with that. And I would still want pure white. If the paint won't stick because it's too wet, then I'll just have to add it next time. So just don't be frustrated if that happens to you. So now within the pear, I have an area of light with the highlight. I have my area of shadow with the core and reflected light. And I need now a cast shadow. So I'm going to clean my brush again and use pure black. I'm going to rotate my paper because it's easier to get a smooth line if you put the brush perpendicular to the edge and slide it along. So I'm just going to slide my brush along the edge of the pear. And if maybe I made a mistake in the shape of the bottom, I could correct the shape of the bottom of the pear when I did that. So I have a pretty clean edge just because I slid it along. And now I'm going to pull the paint out and thin it with water. Because underpainting, this type of underpainting, when you're establishing the values between white, black, and gray, it's called the grisaille, and I definitely want the paint to be thin in any underpainting I do, whether it's a grisaille or a full color one. There, so we got my black. When I thinned it out, it went much, much lighter. I'll put a little more dark in there. Remind myself it's dark. Okay, so I'm almost done with my underpainting. The last thing I like to do to be finished with my underpainting is I like to figure out where my horizon line is going to be. And a horizon line is helpful in making the pear look like it's truly grounded and truly there. So I have the flat of the table, and then I have the vertical space behind it. And the horizon line is where the flat table meets the vertical air behind it. So I'm just going to look at colors I have on my palette, and I want something that contrasts with what's already here. So I could do something fairly dark at the top because this is fairly light. I could do something lighter on the bottom. But I don't worry about it too much. I just want paint down on the paper. And I often change what I've done. So I'm going to my palette, and I'm just mixing it up all messy style and making a value that I can water down and just use. I just want it to be different. It's too close to that, so I'm going to make it a little darker. That's better. So when I'm doing this, I'm actually going to make some corrections. My horizon line has to be above my shadow. So it doesn't have to be a straight line. You can imagine that your object is on a curved table. But I'm just going to thin the paint out. I'm kind of scumbling and a squiggly, so I don't have a predictable pattern. But again, that won't even matter because next time I'll probably change this background color to something else that makes me happier. Whoops, went down too far, doesn't matter. I'm going to paint over the table area. I'm going really fast because it's really boring to watch videos of people paint. There we go, scumble, scumble, scumble. I'm really just putting this down because I'm going to do a gradient on this next time, and it's going to be easier for me to do if I have a little base color. Okay, there we go. All right, so now, oh look, my horizon line doesn't match up. Silly me. So I'll just correct it. I'll bring this side up. There we go. There we go. I have a couple places where I notice my paint has beaded up, so I'll show you how to fix that. So right now I think it's taking me, this has been an 11-minute video. That's pretty long. Okay, so I've got paper towels off camera, wiping my brush clean, and I have some places where the paint's a little too thick. So with my clean, damp brush, I'm just going to lift the color and blend it out a little. I'm just wiping my brush between every move, sliding along the edges, making sure there are no bumps anywhere that might get in the way later if I want to make changes. Put this paint on a little thick there. I'm going to thin it down with my brush. And that's my underpainting. So it's very quick. Gestural, mapped everything I need. I know that there are mistakes. I don't care. It's my rough draft. I'm going to change it. That's it.